think we'll start. Good morning and welcome to the launch of the first of our 2023 What Workers Want webinar series, Working with AI. We've had many revolutionary points when it comes to the society we live in and the world we work in. As far as back as the 13th century, if we go that far back, books were produced by scribes in monasteries around the world. And if we wanted to produce a book, not alone would you require an army of scribes, it could take months or even years to produce that particular book. However, with the invention of the printing press in the 1400s, it changed everything. It meant that a process that previously took weeks, months, or even years could now be done in a matter of minutes or days. However, not everybody was a fan of this new technology, but it did revolutionize that industry, the availability of books, and empowering and elevating the human race. And likewise, when the automobile first emerged in the 19th century, people scoffed at the idea of a horseless carriage. Ray Tomlinson, the inventor of email as we know it today, he described this new technology of electronic mails as having the potential to turn days into minutes. Critics dismissed it as a waste of good technology. So whether it is the steam engine, the wireless radio, airplanes, television, history tells us again and again that people are inherently suspicious of new technology. However, it also tells us that over time, it is adapted in the world of work, and it typically leads to more innovation and increased productivity. So here we are again, AI in its current form, and I think we'll talk more about that when we get to our discussion later, represents the latest technological frontier, another point in history that many say will, and more are saying it is already revolutionizing the way we work. And inevitably, and no surprise, the response to this new technology has been polarizing. So today we will discuss the opportunities emerging from this new technology and look at how it will influence and shape the modern workforce and the workplace. But before we move to our panel, I would like to take you through some of the insights from our research, which this year is based on a survey of over 1,600 employers and professionals who shared their views on AI in the workplace. So on the whole, AI in the workplace is positively viewed by both employers and employees, with most believing we should embrace AI in the workplace. 3/4 of employers also think that we should trust the use of AI at work, but only half of employees agreed. And at the moment, 1/3 of organizations said that they are not using AI tools. However, in the future, 69% expect to allow their staff to use AI tools, but usage will be monitored. In terms of AI's impact on tasks, there's still a lot of unknowns, especially for employees. Our research is telling us that over 1/3 of employers think AI tools will change the type of tasks that staff undertake, and a further 1/3 think tasks will increase. However, only 6% of employers think AI tools will not have any impact on tasks compared to 1 in 5 employees. Furthermore, only 9% of employers are not sure of the impact of AI on tasks compared to 17% of employees. So again, different views there when you compare the employer and employee. The top professions expected to be most impacted by AI according to employers and employees are customer service and contact center, banking and financial services, cybersecurity, accounting and finance, and education. And then when it comes to skills, there is a widespread skill shortage when it comes to AI, according to employers and employees. Employers told us that they don't have access to the right skills to make the best use of AI. And skills gaps aren't just limited to just technical skills. The right soft skills are also lacking. And the top soft skills that employers believe that are needed to complement and the best use of AI includes communication skills, the ability to learn, and the ability to adapt to change. Employees also told us they don't think they have the right skills to make the best use of AI, and 2 out of 3 don't think their employers is helping them to rectify that challenge. And the top ways that employees want their employers to support them in upskilling in AI tools and technologies include investing in training, allowing time during the working hours to complete training, and time to attend industrial events, seminars, and talks. And then how can AI be successfully adopted? Employees told us organizations should have a strong focus on communication to raise awareness and support change, investment in the right resources, and develop a culture that is open to change. So, to delve further into the report and into the world of AI, I'm delighted to be joined by Martin Meikle-Small, who's the Managing Director of Mobile Cloud, John Frizzell, CTO and Venture Partner at Shore Valley Ventures, and Mark Standen, Ireland and UK Intelligent Automation Practice Director at Hays. Thank you all for joining us today and welcome. Can you all hear? Well, we're all well. Great to have you on. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm really excited and interested to get into the depths of this and to talk about all things AI. But before we do that, maybe because there's a lot of new terminology coming our way, and potentially today we'll be using terminology that we as day-to-day operatives, probably non-AI, familiar with AI, may not be familiar with. So can I suppose, if we start with ChatGPT, I think most of us now are familiar with that world, but maybe again to explain, it's not a thing, it's just one AI company is my understanding. And then I suppose from our discussions earlier, maybe if we pick up the glass box versus the black box. So I'm not sure who would like to kick us off. John, would you like to talk about the glass box versus the black box?
Yeah, so AI has been around in many forms for a long time, probably since about the 1960s was the first time the term was coined, and it's gone through a lot of evolutions and revolutions since then. What's caught the public attention most recently is when OpenAI released ChatGPT towards the back end of last year, early this year. And that is what's called generative AI. So you can interact with it, it can create things for you, it can answer questions. But the way it's built means that you can't see inside it. It gets trained, it's fed a whole bunch of data, and it can then respond and interact with you. But when you ask it a question, you don't know exactly why you got the answer you got. It's a black box, you can't see inside it. Right. And that's compared with previous iterations of AI, say rules-based engines, where you could look inside. It was a glass box, you could see why certain decisions were reached and why different things were happening. So that's the glass box versus black box. And it does present some problems with this new wave of generative AI, because if you don't understand how the AI is doing what it's doing or how it's reaching the decisions or opinions it's reaching, it becomes difficult to fully trust it and have full confidence in exactly what it's saying and what it's doing.
Is that worrying, Martin?
Yeah, it is. And a lot of people are concerned in corporations around the hallucinative effect and bias effect of generative AI. And they're based on large language modules, which consumes lots of data on the internet and then bases a generative answer on the back of it. We are seeing closed box large language modules being built. Bloomberg have done a GPT solution using just their finance data. Pfizer have done a solution with a couple of other pharmaceutical companies on cancer analysis using their specific language set. And we're starting to see from Microsoft on their Azure platform, you can build your own large language module with your own information within your own company. So we're seeing it advance really quickly. But in terms of generative AI, you know, in the wider aspect of it is not just a chat type of part. There's API connectivity to get answers to, for example, improve your CV. There's lots of ways to use generative AI. And if people who are listening may have used Midjourney to create images, which is incredible. You can create music, you can create poetry. There's lots of other types of tools we're starting to see emerge, hundreds of different AI products that are coming out there. ChatGPT's really caught the world's imagination, 100 million users, I think, in 6 weeks. And I think it's absolutely transformative for everybody.
I think it's worth saying that there was 1,000 AI product releases in May alone. So ChatGPT is just one. That's yeah.
Yeah. And as you said, that's the one that's caught our attention, but there's many, many more AI tools so hopefully that frames the conversation a little bit where we're going to go. Just as I was taking it a little bit, is it still, where are we at with our journey? Because it's very early days, but then I think, John, you would have said, and Martin, you would have said, this has been, 10 years in the making, or maybe it's been there since the 1960s, but something has changed to take us, we're almost on a transformational journey at this moment in time.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work happening in academia and in kind of on the fringe of general consciousness for years and years and years. The current generation or iteration of these large language models is based on a research paper that was published in 2017. But that was just an iteration on a previous type of large language model, which was just an iteration on one before that. So this has been coming for quite a long time. There's been a lot of research and development happening. We've just now hit an inflection point where the technology has become good enough to really capture the imagination of the masses and to become really useful. It is at a point now where it can really contribute to people's work, to their lives, to their pursuits. It has so many applications, and the pace of the research and innovation has just exploded over the last 6 to 9 months as more and more people have become aware.
As it's still too early days to understand the full impact of AI. Martin, Mark, you may have some thoughts.
I was just going to add, if you look at the both the technology and the research, the scale of the large language modules, version 3.5 of GTP was based on, I think, September 2021 data set. Version 4 expanded by a multitude of about the amount of data that's in it, and it's really driven up the price of the stock market of processing companies. The amount of computer processing required to do this has hit mass scale. And I think the real thing that we've seen is you can go on Bing and use ChatGPT. There's consumer access to this technology, and as we all know, once you try something and it works well, you're going to keep using it for more and more things. And we saw the Google launch, which didn't go quite as well, the ChatGPT launch. So it caused a bit of hesitancy with people. But, the amount of companies and people and individuals that I meet who are using it in their own space to try and learn and do more things with it. I even wrote a poem for my daughter on it, and it took about 15 seconds and pretty poor, but it was better than I'd have done myself. But a lot of people are trying different things now, and they think, crikey, that is quite good. Let me change this bit for a blog. Actually, that was better than I'd have written. Or let me change something in my CV. Actually, that's better than they could have written themselves. So the language aspect of it and the generative language is incredibly powerful with ChatGPT, and we're seeing it whether corporations want it or not. We're seeing lots of individuals using it within their job to drive productivity.
Yeah, okay, so it's already happening. And just on that, you saying corporates, whether they want it or not, it's happening. Do you want to expand a little more on that? Because
I think
are on this call today are corporations, they're businesses, they're running businesses.
Yeah, I think we did a talk maybe 6-8 weeks ago in Brighton in the UK with a number of Hays customers around where people were with ChatGPT and what could it do, and asked people to put their hand up about how many people are using ChatGPT, and maybe half the room said they were using it personally, but within the corporations it was less than 10%, and they were blocked access and things like that. What's happened since then is Bing now has ChatGPT behind it, so you can't really restrict that. The Azure platform for Microsoft includes some of the ChatGPT components. It's an embedded part of the solution now. So we did a talk in London last week with about 100 Hays CTO type level people and Hays customers. And I'd say 90% of people were using ChatGPT themselves, but they really felt that a number of them had still restricted access of it within the business. And there's a real reason is that if you start exposing your company's data or your consumers or customers' data into an open platform, you lose the IP control over that platform. And there was information about Samsung, I think one of their product development, the software code they put within ChatGPT to check it, they lose the IP control of that software because they've publicly made it available. And that's the concern that corporations have, not so much the individual productivity is can we release customers' information to put it out there. So for example, if Mark in Hays had someone see my CV and he used ChatGPT, he's sharing my personal data into an open cloud to do that. So that's been the concerns of corporations. And there are ways of closing that down now. And as I mentioned, you can build your own language modules within Azure, and that there's some things happening now to change to be able to build your own private models, not the public models.
Okay. So that is happening. That's the next iteration. And this was your reference to Pfizer. I think you said they are, yeah, so they're closing it down. Martin, I don't know, is there anything you'd like to add?
I was going to say, well, that's created a whole subset of skills that we didn't need 6 months ago. So whilst there's all the talk about AI and people losing their jobs through it, I mean, that's a prime example of opportunities that are being created that didn't exist. You know, it's like when we had the internet, before the internet, nothing, you know, those jobs didn't exist. Web development, mobile development, all of those sort of skill sets that are so rife within our industry now, especially in technology recruitment, didn't even, you know, fair play back then. So
yeah. Which brings me nicely on to the next question, because I think that's often when new technology comes along, and it's been a big part of this conversation, is what I think actually, John, what somebody said when we were speaking, it's going to give some jobs superpowers and others will be made redundant, which I think is really interesting if you'd like to explore that. But yes, like we've got McKinsey who's saying it could generate 13 trillion in economic output. You've got the same research saying that it's going to require 375 million workers globally to retrain. You've got the World Bank telling us it's going to create 97 million, and apologies, I'm throwing out numbers here, by 2025. But then you have organizations like BT earlier in May announcing that it's going to potentially cut 55,000 jobs by 2030, and 10 of those attributing directly to AI, and IBM signaling something similar. So I suppose back to you, Mark, maybe again, if you want to pick that up, but I think we're at another point, I suppose, where some skills or some opportunities will be superpowers this AI will give, but others then will be potentially made redundant.
So from what we see in the market, it's an unknown still. So while, you know, your BTs and your IBMs will be quoting large number of redundancies, they could be portioning blame for that, for the industry taking off as it is. Those opportunities and those skill sets, you know, people in those roles can be repurposed and reskilled very quickly, because a lot of the stuff, you know, around automation, for example, is low code, no code. So the people that are retraining to do automations, typically the best ones come from the industry that we're repurposing. How do you, I mean, Martin has a lot of experience in those areas. I've worked with him for a number of years around that. And I mean, you could give the example of the large call center, Martin, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd say, first of all, I've done quite a lot of work with IBM, who are really early leaders in the AI space and big brain, you know, big thinking engines and stuff. And what we used to talk about was the difference between automation and AI. And I think often people get confused at the two. We saw robots impact car manufacturing. We see robots or automation automate people's administrative work, and we see lots of examples in the RPA and automation market. AI is good at making a decision or generating something, but it's like the brain in a body. It needs the arms and legs to do something with it. So what we see is solutions where you have to combine different technologies to do that. And when we talk about generative AI, I think what we're really seeing is consumers being able, or individuals being able to improve their personal productivity. And they're the ones when we talk about superpowers. So if you think about a software developer, at the moment, they get a problem, they start writing code or low code or whatever they're going to use, then they test it and they run it and they check it. And there's lots of efficient ways of doing it. We've got automation developers, and about 3 months ago, challenged them to say, can't you use generative AI to create the code rather than, and they're all 5-10 years experience. And they all, obviously, naysayers, no, this is never going to work. And we're not going to do this. And of course, a week later, they're all super smart, superpower now. So now they just put the request into generative AI. It produces the code, they test it, then they check with generative AI to check whether the code's right or wrong. Then they do it, and they're about 80% more efficient. So if you're a software developer and you're not doing something like that or using code check, then you're going to be backwards to everybody else really quickly. So that is a superpower skill for those individuals. The question it asks is, do you need junior developers anymore? Because it's taken the job of a junior developer. Or does it need, you know, the rules of checking things and testing things that can be done with automation tools now? So it does transform really, really quickly. The talk we were doing last week in London, there's a head of marketing for an AI company, and he said his team all use generative AI to do all the blogs. Yeah. So suddenly you're a marketing specialist. Well, you're not now. You're just a prompt engineer to get an answer back to type into a system. And we did an interesting thing with Mark. with your colleague, and we were looking at, could we create an online ad for TikTok or something and pass the job spec to ChatGPT, generate a narrative in a business professional language for a short 30-second advert to describe this job. It produces the script. We pass it straight to an avatar with a haze background like yours, and then an avatar is created in whatever look and feel and voice you want, and it reads out really like positively, why don't you apply for this job? It's a AI developer or prompt engineer, and it reads out all the stuff, all with no human intervention. So you see like these really novel ways of changing things to improve the service you do, but also give this superpower skill to certain types of jobs.
Okay.
I'd just like to say with that, Maureen, that Martin's mentioned 3 job positions there that didn't exist 6 months ago. Prompt engineer, AI engineer, machine learning engineers, you know, they've been around longer than 6 months, but again, new job titles with new skill sets that, you know, there's not much of a worry. They are being created almost daily at the moment.
They're being created daily. But it came through in the research around the lack of skills. But if we look, and there were soft skills and technical, but if we take that from a technical perspective, those jobs didn't exist 6 months ago, let's say 3, 4, 5 months ago. So who are the people that are now doing them? Because they had to upskill in some way. Yes, or they had to learn something new.
What's interesting, I've got a really good friend who's a doctorate in AI. And I would say in the 30 years since he became a doctor in AI, I don't think he did a single day's work in it until because you either worked for an AI specialist research company, you couldn't get work, you know, there might be the odd job in machine learning or small teams of data analysts in a company, but it was analytical work to create models. What we're seeing now is you can now make those models operational in a company. So you get personal productivity, like write me a blog, or you get create an AI decision engine that can actually be deliverable within a customer. So you start now needing those AI skills, both in the business in terms of soft skill and understanding, but also in the IT team to actually use those platforms. Those jobs only really existed in OpenAI or these other companies before. So that's what I think you'll start to see is more jobs in client companies, as well as the regulatory effect and what your AI policy should be, what the human impact should be, and things like that.
We might talk about regulation a little later, because I think that's going to be quite interesting. John, you work with a lot of startups. That's your world. And I would imagine a lot of them are in the world of AI now, or using AI. So how are you seeing a translation on the ground with startups and with young businesses, I suppose, new businesses?
It's a very broad spectrum. So pretty much every company we talk to these days is using AI in some shape or form. Now, that's in part because we have a focus on AI within our portfolio, but also because there is a hype cycle at the moment. I mean, there's a lot of genuine innovation happening, but there is also a massive hype cycle. So you have everything from companies just putting AI on their pitch deck because they think they should have it in there, to companies saying, oh, we're an AI company because we make a call to ChatGPT, to companies that are developing their own foundational models for massively improving the efficiency of, for example, cancer diagnosis. We're seeing a lot of innovation actually in the medtech space, where AI is being brought to bear to automate processes, speed up processes, enhance the quality of results of testing. We're seeing AI in employee wellness and mental health spaces. We're seeing it being applied basically in every sector. So it's not just your large language model, your OpenAI, ChatGPT. It's companies starting to take this technology and finding narrower verticals where they say, well, if I can use an AI model and I have this data I can bring to it, and I can put a front end on it, and I can kind of combine all of them, I can disrupt the sector. I can do something quicker, better, cheaper, more efficiently than the status quo. And there's a land grab. There's almost like a gold rush at the moment of companies trying to figure out how do they bring these AI technologies, these disruptive technologies, into the products they're building. And not just startups, but large incumbent companies. The writing is on the wall. If they don't innovate, if they don't figure out how to use AI, someone else will, and they'll come and they'll eat their lunch. So I think we're at the start of a kind of an inflection point. It's been trundling along quietly in academia and research for many, many years. OpenAI blew the doors wide open. It's kind of front of mind for everyone now. And we're just at the start of what I believe is going to be a kind of an AI revolution, where we will see it permeate so many different aspects of our lives, whether that's work life or home life or hobbies or relationships. There are applications for AI technologies pretty much across the board.
Now. Okay. So then again, practical level, bearing in mind just who's on our webinar today, you know, you're saying if this isn't on your agenda, it needs to be on your agenda. This needs to be very much part of your business model, your strategy. You need to be looking at this.
It's a bit like automation was on everyone's agenda 3 or 4 years ago. Now it's almost, you know, business as usual on that front. This is just the next evolution of technology within board level. And now it's moving down the tree.
Yeah, or mobile or cloud, two kind of evolutions or revolutions we've seen in the last 20 odd years. Again, when the iPhone launched, there was a lot of enterprises kind of dismissed it as being only a consumer product. It very quickly made its way into the enterprise. When cloud launched, a lot of companies were very skeptical of it. Oh no, I need my own data center. I can't trust it on someone else's servers. Now the vast majority of companies use cloud in some shape or form. It's going to be the same with AI.
And the same with the internet. You know, there was speculation about the internet right back in the start. So, and look where we are now. Everyone's got it on their phone, in their pocket at all times.
Well, without the internet, we wouldn't be doing this webinar.
There you go. No.
Yeah, very good point. And then just again, back to the practical levels, was John and Martin, where you're saying organizations, okay, we need to put it on the agenda. We need to, where do people start? Because from the research, there's an acceptance that we are going to have to use it. We will have to, you know, introduce it to our employees, etc. So organizations are already doing this. What are you seeing them do? How are they approaching it?
If I go first, John, I see it's two sides really. One is that individuals in the company need to improve their productivity. And it's a massive challenge for all companies and people to be more productive in their work time and how to do things. And what we're starting to see is people saying, okay, people are going to play and try different tools. And the rules around what data you can share online and things like that need to be defined by companies. But we are seeing like ways of doing innovation within a company and what type of training can be done, because people may not know magically how to make themselves more productive. It's only by trying different things and sharing what's working within their organization that they're going to see innovation to do that. So process improvement teams or innovation teams can help share and leverage that across groups. So our suggestion is that you do try and get people together who are more innovative and want to try. And it doesn't mean by age profile or anything. It's to do with curiosity and innovation. So get people to share, but get people to do cheat sheets, get people to do different things about if you do this or if you ask things in this way. And we were joking last week about prompt engineers. You know, is it a real skill? And I joke, and I did a talk with Google a few years ago, and they said 99.7% of searches on Google do not use advanced search. It's a bit like ChatGPT. If you ask it to do something and you're really generic, you're going to get a really generic answer. The more you do advanced prompting, you're going to get a much more specific answer. And you're only going to get that by trying different things. And the more people in your similar type of roles and jobs in the company will help accelerate your personal and company's personal productivity. The second thing is corporate-based solutions. We're working for a law firm who are trying to innovate using AI and automation. They're probably mid-level ranked in terms of scale, and they see this as a way of really scaling up by using innovation. And they've tried a number of different innovative technologies who are using AI and automation to replace paralegals in where they analyze cases of which cases should go to the lawyers to sue people for. So we're consuming different components of AI. So when we receive the cases, we read the cases in using OCR technology. Most people are probably aware of that, but then we're using cognitive services. So we're reading the document and understanding the intent of the language using document understanding to say, this is a whole long phrase or a whole long paragraph. I need to know, is there someone I can sue? And it analyzes all the data and uses AI to say, yes, there is, and this is the name of the person. And we use AI to extract that. That's an AI function of document understanding. And then we use AI to say, is there enough information to make this worthwhile to sue for? So we use an AI decision engine to say, okay, let's score the thresholds, ensure there's no bias, and say, okay, can we sue somebody? So there's AI components within the whole solution and automation syncing it together. I mean, but that's a corporate solution and not the individuals. Obviously, individuals are impacted. We can come back to how individuals are impacted and their perception of AI and how it impacts their jobs. But what we're seeing is some corporations or businesses are starting to use platform-based AI solutions, and it's often those different component pieces of AI, not one complete solution.
Mm-hmm. Can I take you back to one thing you said there regarding, you mentioned about taking the bias out, and that has been the big conversation piece when it's come to technology for many, many years now, that we know we're writing bias into. Now, as human beings, there's an exception. Of course, we all have biases regardless of who you are, where you've come from, etc. It's inbuilt into who we are. But you mentioned about taking the bias out. Talk more about that, because that's new, I think. Is that relatively new technology?
No, I think what it is generative AI is using lots of data that it's consuming to generate information. So it's inherently biased, and it also makes things up. That's why it's generative. And that's why we get a thing called hallucination. It will make up sources, and you have to go and then ask it to check again in ChatGPT to tell you the sources of the data. So that you can do things to try and get a better response from a ChatGPT type LLM platform. So you have to do it a few times and ask for the sources to do that. What I'm talking more is around using symbolic AI with generative AI. So there's different pieces of AI in that lawyer solution I gave. Some of it is straightforward AI, where it is black box. It's understanding the intent of the language, it's extracting the right words, it's getting the right answers out. And that is pretty black box because it's quite advanced AI. You can't really see why. The decision making, which is the key bit, you have to be able to say, it was this decision tree, this is the audit, this is the data that's taken into account, and this is the output that came from it. And if you did it by different type of any other bias, color of skin, sexuality, age profile, or anything, you'd get the same answer at the end of it, and you can justify the decision. So that type of decision making, you do need a symbolic AI component using other technologies along the way, because otherwise law firms, insurance companies, any advice type things, you have to be able to justify. And I think when the European legislation comes out and the UK legislation and the other legislation, a lot of it will say you have to be able to explain the reasons for the output. And we'll see more demand for glass box type components for decision making, but we will definitely see generative AI and the black box for a lot of other AI functions.
Okay.
I don't know, John, if you've got anything to add to that from your experience, the firms you're working with.
Not even so much from the firms, but just to kind of reiterate what you were saying, Martin, that because these models are trained on massive bodies of text, largely scraped from the internet, which were written by humans, and humans have biases, those biases come into the AI from the text that it ingests as part of its training process. So if you were to train a new large language model on a body of text that was incredibly biased, then the outputs you will get from that large language model are going to reflect its training and be incredibly biased. And it's one of the challenges with the likes of ChatGPT, because it was trained in an unsupervised manner largely on so much text. There wasn't a lot of controls in place as to what it was ingesting. It was just scraping information left, right, and center from all kinds of places on the internet, from Reddit, from Quora, from other social media. So people's personal opinions ended up coming in as part of the training data. And that means that if you ask it a particular question, depending on how it decides to answer, it can reproduce and reflect those biases on what it says. And there is no solution for that at the moment. It's a very active area of research, but it is something to be mindful of. You can't necessarily trust what a generative AI puts out. And don't take it as being the absolute truth. Take it as being something that the generative AI made up. And just to that point, another area where AI is not a silver bullet, a kind of word of caution, and in the legal field that were referring to, Martin, I heard a story recently, or read a story about a lawyer, I think it was in the US, who used ChatGPT to write his opening statement for a court case. And he asked ChatGPT to cite legal precedent as part of preparing the opening statement. And ChatGPT very confidently made up case history, made up the names of the people, made up the dates, and the lawyer then asked it, okay, give me more information on this case that didn't exist. ChatGPT happily and confidently made up a fictional case summary. That lawyer then took that into court and used it and is now in a hell of a lot of trouble. So take the outputs from a generative AI with a pinch of salt. Don't assume that it's right. Fact check. Do your own independent research. It's very good at a lot of things, but it can get some things very badly wrong as well.
Okay, interesting. But Martin, you were saying that there is a tool that you could say, okay, this is what you've told me, now go back and give me your sources. So it will give that, but do we have to check sources that it gives us? So we're almost...
If you're asking for sources from ChatGPT, you ask it to go back and check, and you have to go and reference it. And I think we will start to see combination of technologies. So we will, if you're doing, Mark mentioned about contact centers, and ChatGPT is really aimed as a human to robot chatbot, really. And lots of companies and contact centers in Ireland will have chatbots. Mm. There's been that industry of telephony that have chatbots. The ability to answer a question well is pretty limited based on the knowledge you give that system. If you ask what your mobile phone bill is, the chatbot can go and check your billing system and say, oh, you've got £20 credit or something, but €20 credit. Whereas if you want to actually find out more information, you've got to dive into each of those systems to get the data. Mm-hmm. A large language module is not going to help that. ChatGPT is not going to help that. It's going to answer generic questions. So conversational AI tools and ChatGPT type tools with companies' information are going to take a while to build, but that is going to make a difference in that contact center space. But you have to build that knowledge, and you have to build things, and you have to make sure it's the right information. You don't want to start giving out the wrong information to do that. So with chat tools, we use a tool called Qbot, which checks the accuracy of the retrieval of information against the data set it's looking at. And we think there'll be more tools like that to be able to say, actually, can I check whether ChatGPT has actually found me a real answer or not? And it will mean retrieving and searching the internet or searching the data set to check whether the thing was right or not. So we call it cognitive learning of, if you give it a paragraph of data and you say the answer, I'm looking for a name of somebody, and it's found the answer Mike, and it's actually Martin, then it's going to be wrong. If it finds Martin 95% of the time, you're going to get a high score for it. So you need the check-in tools, and we'll start to see more of those emerge.
Okay, very interesting. Might go back again, and Mark, I might put this to you. The researchers identified the key roles that are, or the positions, the jobs that are going to be impacted by AI, and it spoke about customer service, contact centers, banking, financial services, cyber, accountancy, finance, education. Would that be along your lines of thinking? These are the first jobs that potentially could be impacted. Were you surprised? Is there any jobs that haven't been highlighted?
Recruiter.
Okay, very good.
No, it is a joke, but it is true. I mean, I've seen some of the tools that Martin and co have produced that can take away that initial CV search and stuff that typically our entry-level people would do. But it's really, any kind of mundane type tasks can be automated now, and the evolution of that is to automate them intelligently and then use an AI model to go into those. So they're typical job opportunities. I think there's a large play around banking and finance, you're right, accountancy, finance and legal type opportunities, and some of the work that I know Martin's done around the paralegal space is quite game changing.
Mm-hmm. But it's back again, so you're adding recruiter in there, but it's around the initial sifting of CVs.
Yeah, the more of the administrative tasks to allow us to do our job, really, which is to engage with candidates, engage with clients face to face. So all of that type of stuff can't be replaced, really. but the back end of our jobs that we all know is quite admin heavy, those sort of tasks. So it could, almost a superpower. We'll have a super bot next to us that is able to do that kind of admin. And I think it was Ernst & Young that tried to put a bot with every person in their team worldwide. So effectively, when someone starts their job, there's two of them.
Okay, very interesting. Very good. And is that very early in its infancy? Is it infancy, or is it, have we any research on how that's progressing?
Martin, I think that was one of the ones that you described to me.
No, it's happening. Yeah, I think that's the difference between automation and AI. There's sort of a co-pilot or a bot sitting next to you doing administrative work for you is reasonably prevalent now. The AI tool, or using Copilot for Microsoft, or that's what we're starting to see will make a big difference over the next 6 months or so.
Yeah.
I think it's quite hard if you have children, you say, what would you advise your children to do and how will they be impacted is a really good way, or your staff or people in their career development, is that with automation, a lot of basic administration work has and can be removed, and we'll see more of that in health service, in policing, in lots of different industries that have been slow to take it on. And we'll see larger scale of them. But in terms of AI, it impacts creative jobs and technical jobs as well. The paralegals work, the researching proper cases for lawyers, all of that's automatable and using AI. I mean, I've got a son who's an investment banker, and they always joke and say the first 3 years is building Excel models. Well, that can absolutely be done. When you start using Bloomberg GPT to say, tell me which stocks have done the best in this period of time, and it'll answer, and it's real data, that will change massively that time. And my daughter's an actress, and she's done films and stuff, but does a bit of voiceover work as well. Now that's going to diminish in weeks, because the voiceover creation and avatars now is absolutely transforming what's happening. We've seen the same in the music industry of creating music using Drake and a few other people and creating a whole song and publishing it. So we're starting to see things all around creativity where you'd think actually they're quite secure jobs, you'll be safe. I think we're going to start seeing an awful lot more change around that.
Okay, but then are we saying then potentially the technical piece, and again, this came across in the research, and they said the biggest skills gaps was in the soft skills, that was the employers, and in particular were identifying that was the big challenge. Is that where we're going, that we'll actually, because this is potentially what AI can't replicate, is the softer skills?
Yeah, I think that's the main aim. Anyone who's got a job, I think they've got to look at how they can use this technology and apply their soft skills and how their use of a tool. And it's a bit like, it's a bit like if you start using Excel, it's a pretty basic tool, and some people are super advanced users. I would suggest anybody who's going to be using any of these tools, try and become an advanced user and see how it their job quickly, and how they can apply their humanistic skills on top of it. And that could be soft skills, it could be interpretive skills, it could be language skills, it could be you've got to see what tool you've got or what skill you have in terms of making use and best use of technology. It is a massive wave of technology change, but it's something that's consumable by people individually to use and by companies for advantage. Don't be put off by it.
Yeah, so we are truly in a world of lifelong learning now, and if you're not in that world or adopting, because that can be the big challenge for organizations, the technology comes, encouraging the business to adopt the new technology and make it part of their day-to-day, but really we're at a point now, as John used the word, inflection point, that you have no choice. We are now at a stage that you have to adapt and and be part of this journey, or else potentially you will get left behind. I'm just conscious of time, and I do want to touch on regulation, because at the moment something so new, it's so new to organizations, as you said, opening it up, potentially taking the IP or all this knowledge from the business and putting it out in the ether. Organizations don't want to do that. So what regulation, what is happening? You mentioned the EU, UK, US, I'm sure, but what are governments doing from a legislation point of view, if anything, at this point?
They are coming to this space very aggressively to try and calm people's concerns that there'll be a regulatory framework for technology. In the same way that John said, every piece of technology now has AI in it. Well, that's quite concerning if you don't know what the AI is doing and you don't know what you're buying, you don't know what's sitting behind it. And I think if you look at, we are in the process now of EU regulation specifically, which looks like it's going to be quite tight in terms of what can be used and how it can be used. And each of the companies, of people on the call, your companies will have to look at how it applies and uses those. Software vendors who use AI will have to look at where they comply and meet those rules. So I think we will see, not clamping down, but I think people need a framework and visibility and understanding of what it does and where. But it's a bit like many things. This is a gold rush, and there's a lot of great technologies that you do use AI that can make a company a lot more competitive. And companies and businesses are here to be more competitive and win more market share, or if it's services business, to do better services. So I think the regulation will see a lot of talk about it over the next 6 months, and then I think it won't really start making a difference till next year.
Yeah. And is there any practical things companies can do, decision makers can do to protect their business on this journey?
And until those regulations start coming out, I just think that somebody in an advisory or policy side in a company should be looking at this and looking at whether you're going to have your own AI policy.
Mm-hmm.
Not this law firm I was working with, they have a policy and regulation team, and we had to explain exactly what the system would do, exactly where AI was included, and exactly whether human made a decision or didn't make a decision in the process. And to start with, it said 100% of cases have to have a human review. So we ran the system with a human review on every case, with the reason for the data for the decision and what the decision was. And then there's 3 outcomes, like reject, accept, or human review. After a short period of time, they accepted that all the reject decisions on cases were valid, and it was consistently using the right data, and it was consistently doing the right thing. And they said, okay, we're happy now. And the user acceptance in the team was like, yeah, that was all the rubbish work we did. The tool is doing this better than we would do, and it's doing it quicker, and it's making the right decision every time. And we're happy that the AI tool is working and it's consuming everything correctly. So it was partly the policy side and also the human and the team acceptance and the change learning around it. The ones where they're edge cases where it could be or couldn't be, we're going to keep those as a human input to the AI tool to help tune it and learn better over time and tune the model to do that. And that's a key thing around AI models. You have to tune them to get them closer to what you want them to do.
Very good, very interesting. John, I don't know if you'd like to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think it's a case of there's no one size fits all here. It really depends on your company's risk appetite, the sector you're in, what regulations may exist in that sector as to what freedom you have to move. As with any innovation, you have the adoption curve, you have the innovators, the early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and laggards. And each company needs to make a conscious decision as to where they sit in that adoption curve. The early movers will likely get an early mover advantage, but depending on how they adopt the technology and depending on what regulation comes in, they could then find themselves on the wrong side of the law. Like OpenAI made a decision to go out and scrape the internet, kind of ask for forgiveness, not permission. And there's recently been a $3 billion class action lawsuit launched in the US against them for doing that. Similarly, I can't remember, was it Stable Diffusion or one of the other image generative AIs that went out and scraped copyrighted images from all over the internet to train their model. There's lawsuits been taken against them as well. So it's a kind of a risk reward decision that each company needs to make based on their own risk appetite in the sector they're in, the benefits they think they can get from AI and the potential penalties or consequences of adopting a technology before the regulatory landscape becomes clear. And that's not something that anyone can say blanketly, oh, you should do this. Each company has to make their own decision, but it starts with education. Companies have to start understanding AI, the role it plays, what the current regulatory landscape is, what the risks are, what the opportunities are, how it can be used in their organization. And only when they have that baseline knowledge and understanding can they make an informed decision as to how, when, and in what way they want to adopt.
Okay.
John had a great question last week. It was the finance industry in London, and they said, if we use ChatGPT to give advice on which stock to invest in, can we sue ChatGPT if we lose money?
And it's very interesting. If you look at the terms and conditions of ChatGPT, they have some of the bulletproof terms and conditions I think I've ever seen, which is you will
At your own risk.
but it goes as far as you will indemnify them if they are sued because of something you put out there. Not only can you not pass on a lawsuit you get, but if they get sued directly, you have to indemnify them for the action taken against them for the content you published based on their models. So they are aware of the risks. They obviously took some very good legal advice. And I mean, in fairness, they have Microsoft backing them, so armies of lawyers there, but it is worth being aware of where the buck stops if you're using these generative technologies, and what the trade-offs are.
Buyer beware. And how does that impact an individual? I know we're corporates, but obviously that if you're signing to those terms of business, it's the same for an individual.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Martin,
that's part of, if you disclose information into a public tool like that, then you lose the IP on it. So if you're a musician or a software developer and you put anything on there, you'd be losing the IP and the ownership of it as part of those terms and conditions.
Okay, very interesting. So hence very important for organizations to be aware of that, and the access they give employees to these tools, intentionally or unintentionally. Somebody could share something really important, and then you're saying ChatGPT owns it.
You don't own it anymore.
You don't. Well, you don't own it. Okay, you don't own it anymore.
And I think that's the key thing, really, is that as companies come to these challenges about, it's sometimes trying to understand what are the key challenges, what are the things we need to do, and as part of this talk and afterwards, if anyone wants to reach out, happy to talk to them about how the companies come back and think about what are the key challenges and what do we need to do now, what do we need to do about education, what do we need to wait for. I'm more than happy to speak to people.
Thank you, Martin. Mark, is there anything you'd like to add to that part of the conversation?
No, that's not my my bag.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Just one, so we've got, and just again time, and we have some questions, and again, so the first one: will AI such as Microsoft 365 Copilot, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I think the Copilot is coming more and more into the language, reshape the future of work, leading to workplace changes such as a shorter working week? But I think that probably is a separate point. But even my Copilot, how are organizations working? What is Copilot? Because I'm not sure everybody will know what Copilot is.
So there's a tool called desktop automation. I don't know if you remember that Microsoft used to have a little icon in the corner would try and do things for you. And if you use Outlook or something, it will say, I've looked at your workload and your emails and tries to give you advice on things, or create, focus time or mental health time within your diary. What we'll see is much more automated type functions within your desktop and working pattern of your work. And if you work in a contact center, it probably doesn't impact you. You should probably using company specific tools that are doing something. But if you're using the Microsoft packages, then you can use, we'll see more AI enabled in the work that you're doing, AI and automation, to try and speed up in the effectiveness of your work. The 4-day week, just touching on it, I've got a few friends who've run companies, early companies, really pushing the 4-day week. And there's companies who give you unlimited holiday now. And the whole thing is you can have unlimited holiday as long as you respond within 4 hours.
Yeah, Meta, for example. I've got a friend that works at Meta and he's got unlimited holiday. And how many holiday days have you taken? None.
Yeah. Sky Sports.
His workload's huge. So
and my friend's got a 4-day company, you get paid a basic salary and the rest is all on results. So, the reality of a 4-day week is you still work the hours needed to do the job. But we will see automation and AI be massive productivity improvements to do that. And on your desktop. So on desktop, or AI or a robot to help you on your desktop is one way of fixing the problem. But the corporate solutions are where businesses are really going to make a big difference in their overall performance. An example of AI is in a contact center, next best action, or what should you sell the person? And we see that already in contact centers. And you say, okay, there's 100 different types of information or product you could sell to somebody, and it works out based on the customer profile, information, machine learning historically, and it suggests what that type of tool is. That's another example of an AI-enabled tool, which you can see within a corporate affecting everybody within all the contact centers.
Okay, so we're about to close because we like to keep it to the hour. So maybe just to close out each, if I ask you, so AI, where we're at, as John, as you said, we're at an inflection point. I think you used the word hockey stick moment as well. So this change is happening. You know, it's fast. It's going to impact the world of work. It's going to impact companies and organizations. Can I ask each of you what advice you would give organizations at this point in time? And we may have touched on some of this already, but even to summarize anything that you have said. So John, if I start with you.
Educate yourself. Start now if you haven't already, and keep doing it. There's so much happening in this space so quickly all of the time. Hive out sometime. I know people are busy, but this is a revolution that is happening around us. Make some time to keep up with what's happening in the space and to understand how you can take advantage of it. Because honestly, if you don't take advantage of it, there's a good chance it will take advantage of you.
Okay, excellent. Mark?
I'd say consider it. So along with the educational piece, just consider how you can use this technology to make your job function superpowers rather than, you know, completely disregard the job function. So just consider each action that you take with AI.
Excellent. And Martin?
Do things. You can read as much as you like, do things, test different tools, see what they really do, see what they can really do for you, and really, you know, immerse yourself in it and set teams up in your companies to learn and see how you can take advantage. Reading alone won't do it. I agree, John, about education, but you've got to try and do these things, and then you learn and learn and learn, and it's a rolling ball then.
Okay, so play with it, have fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Great. So we're just coming up to 1 o'clock. Can I thank each of you for your insights and the discussion? I found it extremely interesting. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, John. Thank you, Martin. Thank you. I know, Martin, I know you've already volunteered, and Mark, but I'm sure if somebody wanted to reach out to one of you, you'd be happy to take that call.
Absolutely.
Conversation.
Absolutely.
Or whatever AI methods they might, or world technology they might use to reach out to you. So feel free to do that, and thank you. Also, what's come up in the slide here now, so our report is available, the full report, the full research is available. So if you'd like to request the copy, again, the address is there, hays.ie/what workers want. Thank you all for your time. This is, as I said, one of 3 in the series of What Workers Want 2023. So keep an eye out, or speak to your consultant regarding the next ones that will be coming in the coming months. Thank you for your time. Thank you again, each gentleman, and have a lovely afternoon.